another episode of Retailistic. Today, we are going to dive deeply into the Commerce Tech Power List. So this is very exciting. This is done between Coresight Research, BCV, which is Bain Capital Ventures, and Bain. And this was really kind of a labor of love for all of us. And we spent, I want to say, it was definitely over 6 months kind of thinking about our process, how we would form an, kind of selection committee and an advisory board who would, do a great job of representing the industry. And then just, and I would say like the kind of companies, right, it ebbed and flowed for a while, right, because it could be really broad, right? We see these lists of with 100 startups on them, but we thought that we would be very focused in terms of what kinds of companies we were looking at and how we were thinking about that. And so going back to, looking at this idea around like just commerce tech, not being kind of more broad than that. And that really helped us kind of like hone in on everything. And so just to kind of go through some of the nits and gnats on how we kind of formed this list. So we really looked at, we had kind of the 10 power players and rising stars, and these were in like kind of the commerce and marketing tech industry. So that's kind of, from a high level. And we did look at companies who had achieved, a certain amount of revenue on the kind of power player side. So we utilize that as 10 million or more, and then really kind of showcasing, exceptional capabilities in marketing, merchandising, customer engagement, you know, getting, and also I think longevity as well, right, in terms of that customer engagement as well. And then rising stars, right? These are, those folks who are kind of fresher out of the gate, who are seeing, significant growth and really have found, I would say, a new sandbox to play in with, whether it's from who their customer is, how they're targeting them, where they are from an infrastructure perspective. But, it was really fun to kind of look at, the companies that were in both camps. And so we spent a lot of time with the selection committee, and which was, about 7 folks, and the team that was, kind of a bit more broad on the advisory board side. And there was a lot of back and forth. I mean, this was, doing these lists is not easy, right? And, I've seen it where people kind of, you know, we actually did another list like this. Gosh, it was a few years ago, and it was e-commerce kind of power players, and we just basically, we let people submit, names, and we literally, it was very easy. It was like very data driven, right? Like whoever had the most, it was almost like a popularity contest that they were on the list. And here we really looked at a lot of, data and research, right? Which is why Coresight Research was involved. And, getting to know these companies as well, and to kind of look at their, the competitive landscape and whatnot. And some of these companies, I mean, it's funny. When I was at Citi, I used to host this amazing conference with BCV, and we'd have a lot of the retail CIOs, and clients loved it because it was so unique, and they really got a interesting kind of data point as to how they thought about valuations and whatnot, and, kind of future value. And so we had at one of our first ones, um, Raj from Bloomreach, and, he made it onto this kind of power players list. And I was like, it was kind of like going back to the future in some ways. And, it's interesting as you kind of, think about how you've kind of gotten to know these people in the past, how you've kind of worked with them. I mean, it was funny, kind of Adrian from Miracle, he and I were on a webinar together during the pandemic, and, Vincent from Firework, we've done a lot together. As Coresight Research is very passionate about live streaming. And so the list includes Algolia, Attentive, Bloomreach, Firework, Clavio, Miracle, Recharge, Suna, Wonderkind, and Yotpo. And Yotpo we've also known just from kind of being in some of the same circles at different Israeli tech events. And so it was really nice to see such a diverse list, geographically, backgrounds of the founders, co-founders, etc. And thinking about these challenges that they were solving, how they were solving them, and even in some cases where some of these companies are working together, right, to go to market, I think is also very interesting. And we're seeing actually more of that than I think I have in my career, where different technology solutions are saying, hey, we partner with so and so, we partner with so and so, and we've actually had several inbounds from technology solutions about, if we're working with advisory clients, could we think of recommending them? And it's a really interesting and easier way, I think, to kind of drive awareness of your skill set, the management team, and also kind of some of the, if you will, some of the gaps that you can fill. So that's what was really, I would say, in some ways, that's what differentiated the kind of power players from the rising stars, because they really had more of those types of, relationships, go to market strategies, right? This partnership, whereas, the rising stars, right? These are all fairly new companies. One of the ones that's been around for quite a while is Eon. She was on stage with me at Shop Talk at one of our startup events. And we met, oh my gosh, Lily AI. I met Purva in San Francisco. I think we met over a basket of fries at the Battery. And we're going to have Optimatic on later today. Mandela's got I like to call him Patrick, but Mandela Patrick, two first names, I guess, has got a great story in terms of where they are, how they kind of came together during the pandemic, and then they've just launched in the Apple App Store and just all the success that they've had there. And then Zenolytic. I mean, it's really been very exciting. And I think that as we look at where the rising stars are now, and as we can like kind of project into the future with what we've seen from the power players, it really is kind of very different. And as we look at right now, of course, at Coresight, we're being asked pretty much daily, generative AI really is the foundation of almost every conversation. And what experiments are people running? What's been successful? Where are the gaps and whatnot? And I think that the implications for brands and retailers are that there's so much noise, right? There's just so much happening. I mean, it goes back to one of the reasons why we formed the AI Council. And that's over 100 retailers and brands. And we've got 10 amazing sponsors who are helping us to, kind of power our infrastructure and our team. And it's been really unbelievable to see, and why, I've thought about this quite a bit, why generative AI is such a bigger story than anything else that we've been involved in, is that it really touches absolutely every kind of technology solution and every retailer, brand, restaurant, et cetera, that technology company that we work with. And we're seeing a lot right in financial services and healthcare, where we at Coresight focus on the consumer facing piece of this. And, as you think about these rising stars, because some of these companies, right, they are, earlier in their development, they are folding in generative AI, and it really is, I'd say, having a huge impact in terms of their business, their opportunities, and whatnot. And it's always, I mean, it's funny because, you look at some of these power players. I mean, 2009 with Bloomreach isn't that long ago, but they've done a phenomenal job, right, of, kind of, I would say, reinventing their tech stack and being incredibly relevant to consumers. So as we think about this whole process of, building a list, as important and I'd say as industry shattering, if you will, as this was, thinking about who the power players are in the industry, the impact that they can have, and the speed with which they can have it. And that's been very, kind of exciting to us. And, to help retailers and brands kind of cycle through a lot of companies, knowing all of these amazing kind of advisory board and selection committee members that we had, it really did make a big difference in terms of thinking about what was practical and not just the bright shiny objects. So if I were to summarize my experience on our, I guess is our second kind of opportunity to kind of work on building a list as impactful as this one, is that having I liked having the different buckets, right? Having the more established and having those who are kind of earlier in their journey. It was great to have not only an advisory board, but a selection committee, so people that we could tap into. And then being really data driven in terms of how we got here also made kind of all the difference. So if I were to look ahead, I would say there will be more lists as we kind of help investors and retailers and brands kind of really make great decisions in terms of how to think about potential technology solutions out there. And of course, there'll be more research, and stay tuned for more on the AI Council. We're going to now talk to Mandela Patrick over at Optimatic, and listen to his journey as well. Thanks for joining us today. We are so excited to be able to roll out some of the amazing startups who have been highlighted as part of our Commerce Tech series. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Deborah. Really excited to be here.
So maybe talk to me about how you kind of got introduced originally to the BCV team, and how you've kind of made it to here today.
Yeah, no, so got introduced to the BCV team by one of my angel investors. I think he met Christina at a retreat in California. Thought we would have a lot of shared overlapping interests, and so ended up meeting the team through Christina, and then met a bunch of the other amazing folks on that team afterwards.
Fantastic. We used to host a conference actually when I was at Citigroup with the BCV team. And it was amazing, right, for Wall Street analysts to have that kind of first look at some of these startups and how they were actually powering some of the companies that they followed. So always impressive. So maybe if we can take just a big giant step back, can you tell us a little bit about why you started the company, what the problem was that you were trying to solve, and what is it that you saw in the landscape that gave you the confidence that there was enough market size and market potential?
Yeah, no, so a little bit of background. In 2020, during the pandemic, I made this website with two of my really brilliant friends called the People's Gala. And what we were trying to do is, obviously, this is in the middle of COVID. You couldn't really go anywhere. And one of the events we actually wanted to go if COVID wasn't happening was the Met Gala. Um, but we couldn't go to the Met Gala for a variety of reasons. One, obviously, COVID, but two, we're not celebrities. But I think we enjoyed like the costumes, etc. And so we made this product where you could essentially Photoshop yourself into Met Gala costumes over the years. And so that was one of the most exciting products I had originally worked on, and then ended up joining a startup, Pinata Farms, after my PhD, where we were trying to build these personalized memes. And so I've been always interested in personalization and recommendations from my PhD background, from the projects that I've been excited about. And what we were trying to build at Optimatic was how can we bring mass personalization at scale to both consumers as well as for brands.
And talk to me about, how did you come up with the name Optimatic?
Yeah, no, so Optimatic is a mix of two words, optimize and automatic. And so we automatically optimize basically.
That's that is, I did not expect that answer, and that's a really good one. Can you tell us a little bit about your team, and how did you meet them? Have you worked with them previously, etc.? And how has it grown over time?
Yeah, so I've been fortunate to start this company with two of my best friends. One I went to Harvard undergrad with. We were problem set buddies since freshman year. I did every computer science class together. So I've known him for 9+ years now. And then my other co-founder, we both did AI PhDs at Oxford together. We actually met presenting our research, not in Oxford, but actually in South Korea. We were both presenting at this really popular and massive computer vision conference there. And we just like hit it off instantly. And so um, fortunate enough to start a company with people I've known for years. And then into like how the team has grown, have been able to bring on some really amazing people on the growth and marketing side to help us bring our vision to reality.
And as you think about, the team and who your current customers are and who you want your customers to be, what kind of relationships does your team have with those people and how are you further developing them?
So we um tackling both consumers as well as brands. Consumers we can essentially reach via a number of different ways, from paid marketing to organic content to influencers. And for brands and media companies, a lot of that is warm intros from our investors, hosting different events, and inviting the right folks to attend. And then just being scrappy startup, cold emails, cold LinkedIn DMs, and sort of warm intros, as much warm intros as possible.
That makes a lot of sense. And, is there anything you guys have done that's gone viral, right? If people were to say, "Oh yeah, those guys at Optimatic," what would you say to date has kind of been the, a wow moment for you?
So we just released our consumer product Optics on the App Store just over a week ago. Um,
Congratulations.
Thank you. We hit top 60 on the App Store for the graphics and design category on launch, which was really exciting. And we ended up launching it internationally. And so my mom actually got to use it. And I've never seen her more excited to use an app before. And so I would say that was probably the most magical experience, to see my mom, my dad, and my brother use the product for the first time and really experience how magical it is.
And now they're like, "Now we understand what he's doing." So,
Exactly.
what with that launch, and once again, it's been very recent, what has been the feedback? What have been the surprises along the way?
The feedback has generally been like, "We love this. Can you give us more?" So we launched a very limited version of the app in some sense. So you could only so what Optics is, it allows you to create these super hyper personalized avatars and images of yourself doing a bunch of really cool and fun stuff. And we launched with only like six different styles at the beginning, just to get an initial sense of what is consumer demand for it. One of the styles was actually around the Barbie moment, so you could be any Barbie in the world, using our technology. And the general reaction has been, "We like what you already have. Can you give us more of it?" And so we're quickly expanding and adding more styles and different types of outputs to the app.
And what have you seen in terms of the demos, demographics of people who are utilizing it from the consumer side?
Yes, so on the demographics side, we're seeing a lot of women um, in the sort of Gen Z millennial
Kind of
age
like
dem.
what we would have thought.
Yeah, yeah, like the Barbie, particularly the Barbie style has been by far the most popular, um, and
I
so yeah.
Is there anything that's been a surprise in terms of consumers? I will tell you, we were on last night late with an Asia-based company that's doing, more it's kind of like digital fashion products, and they said it was, they found that it was kind of males over 40, right? Who were, kind of trying to figure out the latest and greatest, and, and so I was like, "Really?" So I'm like, I'm not sure if I would have asked that question today if I hadn't had that conversation
Got you.
last night. But it was really interesting because they were like, it wasn't necessarily because they're like, we thought it was just all going to be 100% Gen Z, but it was a lot of folks for them, at least, who were trying to figure out, right, what, people who were actually doing their homework before they went shopping almost, right,
Mm.
to figure out, this is the virtual fashion. How do I think about kind of the fashion in the real world? Which brings me to thinking about your revenue model as it stands now and as you're starting to see with the launch of the consumer side of things, how is that changing? And what do you think is, kind of still untapped territory?
Yeah, really good question. On the revenue model side, we're just about to add monetization this coming week, and so we're going to get some early numbers. But the plan there is a subscription model, and so you subscribe to access the latest styles, latest content that are super hyper personalized to you. Is also the B2B side of the business where we license our technology as an API for brands and businesses to leverage their creative IP so that their users and their consumers can engage and immerse themselves in their IP in user generated content. And in that business model, we'll be doing probably like a typical usage based pricing where you charge for per API request and it scales by number of requests.
And where do you see kind of where you are right now, the ways that you're monetizing what you're doing? Because obviously early on it's different than it is, kind of 12, 18, 36 months out. How do you see that evolving over time? Like, what do you charge for now that maybe you won't in the future? Because there's also always this idea, right? Kind of get them in for free,
Mm.
and then once they're hooked, right? Then there's going to be other things that they're going to buy along the way. How have you thought about it? Maybe even more holistically slash strategically. And is there anything that you've seen to date that changes that?
Really good question. For I think how it changes will depend, I think, on the data we start seeing. I think there's a version of the world where the consumer play becomes lead generation validation for a B2B for the B2B play that is say either bringing in more revenue or more sustainable revenue. Or the consumer play is a massive cash cow in a way that we couldn't really predict. And at that point, you're finding different ways to increase and essentially with consumer plays, what you're trying to do is how do you increase retention and engagement in your product so that the lifetime value of your customers sort of extends. And so I think part of the monetization strategy will be figuring out which features are users engaging with and how do we constantly provide improved and better versions of those features. And so that's going to be a lot of experimentation and user insights.
That's really helpful. And what are you seeing in terms of competition? And has anyone reacted to Optimatic at this point? Like, oh my gosh, look what they're doing. We've got to make sure we're ahead of those guys.
Yeah. Competition, there has been um, a few of these AI generative avatar apps um, that have done extremely well, like Remini, which was like number one on the App Store literally last week. I think plays in a similar direction. I'm particularly excited about the direction that we're heading in, which is, I think, leveraging a different insight to what these other companies are doing and doing a completely different product experience as well as a monetization strategy that aligns with that insight and product direction.
So, for any founder, I have to ask this question because I ask myself it all the time. What keeps you up at night?
Ooh, it's a tough one. Really nailing product market fit. I think the thesis of the company is there's been companies that have popped up, popped off, and then quickly popped down in this space. But we think it's going to be a market defining company in this space, and the function of that is really nailing product market fit. So like, what do your users really want? How do you build a product for what they care about? And so yeah, really figuring out what is that insight or that level that really drives that product market fit and that retention and lifetime value.
All right, my last question, and then I'll let you. I always say, there's questions I'm sure I didn't ask that people ask you all the time, so I'll leave that to you at the end. But as as people, let's just say whether it's other startups, large tech companies, venture, or whatnot, have gotten to either know the company through the press or have seen the company in terms of utilizing it, have you been approached by anyone who wants to kind of partner, utilize the tech? What's kind of been the reactions from the technology community and even the venture community?
Yeah, it's been honestly a lot of excitement. We had a really awesome event for LA Tech Week about a couple months ago. It was completely oversubscribed, maybe about 800 RSVPs for a 200-person event. Um, and yeah, we got to sort of engage with a lot of the tech community in LA, and there was just so much excitement for what we're building. A lot of people wanted to like partner or collaborate. But as a early startup, the game is essentially focused on to really understanding which partnerships, which partners make sense for the time and stage your company is at, and sort of trying to sort of establish those relationships.
All right. So, what did I not ask you that other people are?
I think questions, particularly in AI now, is about tech differentiation. How is are you building open source or with APIs? Um, so yeah, I think I hear those questions a lot.
Great. Well, thank you. This is truly exciting. I can't believe we've gotten to speak to you after your first week of this incredibly successful launch in the App Store. And congratulations for being on the Commerce Tech List Players as well. Looking forward to watching all of your success and staying in touch. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Deborah. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us today. You got to hear all of the details on our work on the Power Player List and Rising Stars and this phenomenal conversation with Mandela and Optimatic. And please stay tuned. We're going to have more of these amazing companies join us in the future. And we'll have the folks from BCV and Bain on as well. So this is just the beginning of so much fun. And also stay tuned for more insights and information on the Coresight AI Council. If anyone's interested, please reach out directly. Thanks so much. Have a great day. And please subscribe on your podcast channel of choice. And we also have a great research report that we wrote on this very topic that is easily accessible, called the Commerce Tech Power List 2023, Unveiling the Innovators Shaping the Future of Retail. Thanks and have a great day.